We just saw the teaser trailer for Supergirl, and we got to talk about it. Also, I got my cat Mortimer on my lap here. He's got a lot to say about this one because Supergirl saved some cats. We saw it in the newspaper, and that was good of her. That was a good thing that she did. I don't know why it's kind of framed as less important than Superman averting a nuclear disaster, because it's clear she had a couple of cats, not just one. So that's very important. I think this trailer is going to be interesting. I think a lot of people are going to have a lot to say about it, and that is for many, many reasons. But the main one, and I think the most important one, is that trailer is based off of what is many people's, including my, favorite DC Comics, anything from the last decade, Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, written by Tom King with art by Bill Everly and Matthias Lopez. Now, first of all, I don't want to seem like this is an unfair comparison. Oh, why are you holding it to this standard? Because originally, this movie was named Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, and just based on the trailer, it is very clearly going for that. The setup seems to be the same, the characters seem to be the same, so I think that's why it has to be talked about. And I'm sure there will be a lot of people to talk about this trailer just as a movie trailer, but I think the way that it exists in the context of like this book and being based on this book specifically is interesting. It also, I think, tells us a lot about what we haven't seen and what some choices seem to be. Basic stuff right off the bat. This movie stars Miley Alcock. Most people know her from House of the Dragon. She was on that show Sirens. She's a very popular young actor. I wouldn't say she is the most famous member of this cast, but I would say like she's up there. And this is the first cinematic Supergirl movie since the Helen Slater movie from the 1980s. And then obviously you had Sasha Calle playing Supergirl in The Flash. But I think these days, when most people think Supergirl, you think of Melissa Benoist in the Supergirl show. For many seasons, she showed up in all of the crossovers. By the end of it, she was a huge part of the CW Arrowverse. And I would say her version of the character felt the closest to just like a plain old Supergirl. Not a take on Supergirl, just Supergirl. And while I think the Miley Alcock Supergirl is supposed to also feel like just a plain old Supergirl, she's very clearly inspired by the Supergirl from this book, which we'll talk about. This movie is directed by Craig Gillespie. I would say what he's known for is split between television and movies pretty evenly. He's directed a lot of television, recent stuff like Your Friends and Neighbors, That Mike Tyson Show, Pam and Tommy, Physical. And he's directed some movies. That Dumb Money movie starring almost everyone's favorite actor, Paul Dano. He directed the Cruella movie, and probably most notably, what they will credit him as the director of in a future version of this, like a different trailer, he directed I, Tonya. So speaking of a blonde woman who has problems, and besides being adapted by the Tom King book, the script is written by Ana Nogueira. And Ana is interesting because apparently the script for this movie is so good that James Gunn wants Ana to also write the Teen Titans movie and the Wonder Woman movie. Now, if you just look at her IMDb page, this is surprising because she doesn't have any other feature films that she has written. However, she did write 2 plays, so I think looking at just her IMDb page doesn't tell the whole story. I've not seen these plays, but from looking online, her play, Which Way to the Stage, was well reviewed. So if you want to be like, oh, what's this gonna feel like? What's the writing of this gonna feel like? Obviously, read Woman of Tomorrow, but also, I guess try to find a shoot of one of those plays or the script. From looking at the New York Times review of Which Way to the Stage, her most recent play, I believe, as of 2022, it mentions things like anger, love, cynicism. So those are very much in line with how Carl works, how the specific comic Woman of Tomorrow works. So that's good. Other main characters. We have a character named Ruth or Ruthie. I never knew how to pronounce this, played by Eve Ridley. She's a little girl. She was in the Through Body Problem. And then we have Krem of the Yellow Hills, played by Matthias Schoenhardt. Now you'll probably recognize him from the Old Guard. And then you've got Car's 2 parents, Emily Beecham playing Laura Inze. I believe she was in Cruella, and then David Krumholtz from like Oppenheimer playing her dad, Zor-El. There is also a cameo or something that we see a little bit of in this trailer. Jason Momoa is playing the bounty hunter, the main man, Lobo. Okay, so that's the cast, that's all the important stuff. Let's talk about the trailer. The tone of it seems more or less in line with the Supergirl we saw at the end of Superman, where she is drunk, and apparently, according to Superman, she goes to planets with red suns to drink. She has crypto. She's somewhat irresponsible as a dog owner. And she has an attitude that would suggest she doesn't take certain things as seriously as Superman, but not necessarily because she doesn't care. We'll find out in this book it's because of how she was raised and what she had to deal with as a kid, among maybe other stuff. And I'm just gonna say, right off the bat, I think this trailer was okay. There were certain things I really liked and certain things that I am quite worried about. I don't want it to come off as I'm being extra hard on this, because like it's DC and I'm extra hard on DC, which I guess is kind of true historically for the channel, but especially recently, I've been very positive about Creature Commandos, Peacemaker, and Superman, even though I think Creature Commandos and Peacemaker had weird endings to the seasons. I think overall, I enjoyed all of those. However, all of those were written and directed by one person. There were other writers, I think, but it was the work of James Gunn, and his name was all over it. He was part of the advertising for it. This is the first non-James Gunn project in the new DCU. And I would say it's interesting because it looks more like a James Gunn project than any of those other things that I mentioned. B, I don't want it to seem like I'm being extra hard on this or like dismissive because she's a woman. If anything, I think going easier on this than I would for like Superman feels worse. So either way, these are my thoughts. Take them or leave them. Okay, good things. Kara's energy, I think, is interesting, but it's something, right? She does not feel like a blank slate. She has things she clearly likes, doesn't like. She's somewhat jaded. I like that. However, we'll see, because the book does that in a very specific way, which the Superman cameo would suggest is not how this works. Specifically, in the book Woman of Tomorrow, Supergirl is drinking to celebrate her birthday like she is here. I believe in the book it is her 21st birthday. In this, it's her 23rd birthday. I assume that's how old Millie Alcock is. But in Woman of Tomorrow, it's like, I am 21 right now. I want to go to a planet with a red sun and have a drink for my birthday. And based on what Supergirl says in the Supergirl movie, it seems like she is very depressed based on the circumstances of her upbringing. And she just goes to planets with red suns and drinks all the time. Seemingly so much so that even on Earth with a yellow sun, she's still hungover. So like that's a lot. And Superman like kind of treats it like, ugh, she's like problem child. Now I want to be super clear. I don't think that difference is necessarily bad. And I don't think there's anything specifically bad about like, oh, it's not exactly like the source material. I do think the differences inform choices made by the writers, directors, producers. And that's going to be interesting because that's going to tell us kind of maybe what to expect in the rest of this movie. And again, this is a trailer, so I'm not trying to like judge whether the movie is good or not this far out, but this is also like a trailer. This is something that they gave us presented that's like, hey, this is kind of what the movie's gonna be like. So I think it's fair to look at that and say like, oh, this is different than what I expected this bit would be. Again, we'll talk about that. It's mostly visual stuff. I have seen a lot of people compare, especially because of the pre-trailer thing that they released yesterday, that even though this is not directed or written by James Gunn, Supergirl feels a lot like Star-Lord. She has the coat, she has headphones that are old school, and she dances around, and she does that in the trailer. I believe she dances to like a jukebox, which, sure, that's fine, that's fun. I am like, man, this is like just a small thing, and this is definitely something that could just be a choice for the trailer. I am so goddamn tired of all these superheroes being obsessed with music from like 40 years ago. Now, Call Me by Blondie is a song from 1980, and I'm going to say this to my fellow over 30-year-olds, that makes it a 45-year-old song. I remember that song being in Zoolander and being like, oh, that's an old song. And that was a movie that came out in 2001, which means that movie came out before this version of Supergirl was even born. Now, people can like old music, people can have that be their style, and that stuff does kind of come back into style pretty frequently. But like, just once, I want one of these superheroes to listen to contemporary music, especially her, because she's not Star-Lord. She was not raised in space, but given a tape of Earth music by her mother. Or like Peacemaker, she's not kind of in a state of arrested development because she killed her brother, and she has all this music from when she was younger that's like really stuck with her. If the soundtrack for this movie is like Blondie and Madonna and musicians from like the 80s and even 90s, I'm like, god damn, this character has spent at least enough time on Earth to kind of know what it is. It's unclear when she got here, but let's say Kara has been on Earth for 5 years at least. That means she's been listening to music since maybe 2020. It's like, where's Charlie XCX? Where is Billie Eilish? Where is Addison Rae? Like Sabrina Carpenter, Lana Del Rey. Hell, I would even take Florence and the Machine here because I think that is more contemporary than Blondie by like a lot. One thing I liked about Black Panther, and definitely the first movie, I remember this very much from the trailer, is like Kendrick Lamar worked on the score for that movie, and they used that Kendrick Lamar music in the trailer. And not just because Kendrick Lamar is a great musician, because that is what someone that is the age of T'Challa and Shuri would probably be listening to, because he is very popular and they're like in their 20s and 30s or whatever. Now, I'm not saying that doesn't mean that Supergirl can't listen to classic rock. What I'm saying is, these guys can't all listen to classic rock. If this was a one-off, I would be like, sure, that makes sense with her personality enough, whatever. But because that has become the standard with these guys, it feels so strange. Like, it doesn't seem like they're going to make that Booster Gold show anymore. So I don't even know what the next one of these would be. Jon Stewart in the Green Lantern show would listen to music from today. Even if they give him something different, like let's say like hip-hop stuff from the 80s. It's like, no, he grew up when I grew up. It should be 50 Cent and G-Unit and Outkast and Jay-Z and all those guys. This is just something that's really annoyed me. I think because of how popular Star-Lord was, and also because like these movies are trying to appeal to people that are also older, that became kind of the standard. But like, I also think something about this movie that's important is this movie should appeal to younger girls. There should be people the age of Supergirl in this, which is 23, who see this trailer and are like, oh, Sabrina Carpenter, yeah, I like her. That's like, oh yeah, she's dancing, kind of like I dance to stuff, which is not Blondie. It's just like, it's so specific. I want a Supergirl who listens to something, even Kesha, even something that's like a little older, right? Something from like 10 years ago, whatever. That would be fine. And Kesha's still going. So to be fair, there's new Kesha, but I would say like she's an act who is very much remembered as part of like the 2010s. And that idea of like being Ratchet, that feels like exactly what the Supergirl's deal is. And this is just, it really bugs me. Please, one of the companies making shows about young-ish superheroes under 40, have them listen to music that actor listens to. Even if it doesn't feel exactly like the tone of what the movie is, like just speak a little bit to like who they are, who that audience is. Anyway, back to the thing. So Supergirl is drunk. She is also like cynical. I like that. That is a big part of Supergirl. And they even show the dome going over Argo City, which is something that gets covered in the book and is a part of her origin and is part of why she is way more cynical than Superman, why he sees the good in people and she sees the truth in people, which would suggest that the truth is not always good. You know, like her family raised her on a version of Krypton that was falling apart and killing everybody in Argo City. So it's very interesting. It's an interesting dynamic. It's a complicated dynamic now because usually in the comics, Jor-El is like good and Superman is like, oh, I'm inspired by my father from Krypton who gave me all these values about like what to do when I go to Earth. And then like Supergirl's dad is like bad, not bad, but say more uncaring, unfeeling. That's definitely how they portray him in this book. But like in this universe, while Jor-El is like loving and like shows affection to Superman, he is also bad and like his worldview is not good. So like it's interesting. Maybe they'll swap it. Maybe Zorro will be like kinder. And that really doesn't feel like it would work. Anyway, we'll see. We get a little bit of Ruthie, not a ton of Ruthie, the little girl. She's got her sword, so that's good. It means that part of the story is being replicated in the movie. The sword of her father, which she brings with her on this journey. For people who don't know what like the plot of the book is, it's very much True Grit, which is a very old story, which was made into a movie in like somewhere in the 2010s with Haley Steinfeld, actually. But like with that story, it's a lone wolf and cub situation. It is a little girl who is out for revenge, and then some older warrior who has to take her on that journey and kind of teach her about like why going out for revenge is bad. And like I get that vibe here. One thing that's very different in the presentation between what it seems like we're getting from this trailer and what the book does is the book is all written from Ruthie's point of view. This is her story, and it kind of plays out like a legend of like this adventure she had with this incredible, you know, otherworldly Supergirl figure. With this, especially because we're getting this shot of Supergirl being on the ship by herself, probably before all the bad stuff happens. It's like, maybe it's from Supergirl's perspective, making it a little bit simpler for audiences, which I get, but like interesting, you know, interesting difference. We see the villain of the movie, Krem of the Yellow Hills. Now, is this the Matthias Schoenerhardt's character? Usually he looks in the books just like Matthias Schoenerhardt's, like almost exactly like he looks in the Old Guard. That's why when he was cast, I was like, oh my God, this is perfect. Like, grow that beard out, grow that hair out a little bit, you got him. For whatever reason, they've decided to stud him up, like just lots and lots of facial piercings or whatever this is supposed to be. I guess maybe to make him look more extreme, more alien. He has that vibe. I've seen people compare him to like a Ravager from the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, and I don't disagree. I think the thing about Krem to me in the books that is the most kind of scary is how simple he is, how he just looks like a guy. And that's kind of, I think, why Supergirl in the book has an interesting reaction to him. She sees him and he's like, oh, some guy. And then he's like, no, he's dangerous and like capable. But, you know, that's a change they're making. And, you know, it's not like a guy that looks like that can't be scary in a movie. I saw that movie Sisu, where a similar looking guy strikes fear into the hearts of all the Nazis. I think it could work. If they don't like the look, I'm a little worried because they don't have the actor for reshoots, because he is at least currently in prison or something, but maybe they can figure out a way around that. I don't know. If the movie plays like the book, Krem's not in it very much. In the book, they're chasing him and they always get there like in his wake. So they see the destruction, some kind of genocide or massacre or whatever that Krem was involved in. Now, we don't get any hint of that. We don't see the other planets. I think if this trailer showed a bunch of very different looking planets, I would go, oh, that's what they're doing. They might not do this the same way. It may be a little bit more linear of a story. You know, it does seem like she's going to get on a space bus at some point, so they are going to go to a different world, but the look of the different worlds in the trailer, they're not distinct enough to guarantee that it's like the kind of globe trotting, and globe is like a funny word, like universe trotting adventure, galaxy trotting, I guess. And then we see Lobo, who's not in the original material, but makes sense because he is a space bounty hunter guy. It seems like either he would know Krem or he would be someone Krem would hire to stop Supergirl. Or maybe he's just like a third party who shows up after a fight and is like, oh, I think Supergirl was here. And we're like, oh, is he going to be good or bad? Is he going to help her or antagonize her? You could kind of do it either way, depending on what this Lobo's history is. I think Jason Momoa looks right, as we all knew he would. For like a decade, we knew that he would be a good Lobo, and, you know, here he is. So, like, I really like the characterization of Supergirl. I think Ruthie also looks solid. I can see that character working. Curious about Krem. Lobo looks great. The fight scenes look fine. I don't know what I would want from one of these fight scenes because they are supposed to feel more grounded, but this comes up against my big problem with the trailer. A lot of people's big problem with the trailer. It doesn't look amazing, and it doesn't have to. Every movie doesn't have to look amazing. But if we're talking about the source material again, this book, you can open any page and find something amazing, something like stunning. A lot of it is like the different colors, but again, that's something about like the different planets and how they have different atmospheres and different alien people on them. Like, it's an excellent book, but like, I think it would be a bummer if the book based on this comic didn't have this in it and something that looks that cool. And even if like it doesn't have the exact same look, I think the color is very meh to me here. Like, I am not impressed with the color of this movie. It looks very gray, very dull, looks a lot like the Guardians movies, but even the Guardians trailers and like the teasers would show other planets and you go, oh, that's bright and cool and different, right? That was something they were actually really good at. This is showing a lot of stuff from this beginning part, it seems like, but some other parts later in the movie that all kind of look like the nowhere celestial head base from the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. And like, while that is what one of the planets can look like, it is definitely not the most interesting aesthetic here. And like, I really hope that they have other stuff that they just haven't shown us yet. Now, I've seen people say, this is just a teaser. There's probably all kinds of cool, colorful stuff in there. Well, this is the teaser they chose to show us with the clips that they chose to show us. And like, this movie comes out in like 6 or 7 months or whatever. They have something done. And if they don't, they could have gotten something done for this. And like, told VFX, like, we want to work on one big, fun looking effect that people will see in the trailer and go, wow, that's going to look spectacular. They usually do that. These guys usually figure out a way to do that. And yeah, I'm just not sold visually on this movie. And I think it's not just the, oh, this is a movie I'm not going to like to look at. It is, will this movie be as ambitious as the comic it is based on? And if it's not, will that be as interesting? Because like, fun, I guess, to watch Supergirl just walk around planets that all kind of look the same. But like, part of what is special about this story is it takes place in a big, colorful space, and she is a big, colorful character. It's something interesting because of how it contrasts with maybe how she acts and how she feels. Like, she looks like Supergirl. She has the cape and the dress and the icon and all that, but she acts like a less psychotic version of like hardcore, right? One that's not trying to start all of the fights all the time, but one who can be cynical and angry in a way that like, you'd be surprised to see Superman act that way. I also just still do not like the collar. It's never going to work for me, I think. And it's not a deal breaker. And I think the Superman suit is one of the best Superman suits we've seen in one of these movies. However, to quote one of the worst DC movies,
but it can be better.
And for me, like, better is just kill the collar. If you took the collar off both of these suits, they would be perfect. But that's just me. That's my opinion. The action's fine. It looks like some of the Guardians of the Galaxy action. It has that kind of close camera thing that James Gunn does a lot now. You know, trying to think if there's anything else about this trailer that really stuck out for me. And like, this is, I don't know how long this video is going to be, like bordering on a half-hour long video about a minute-and-a-half long trailer. So, you know, I feel like I probably got most of my thoughts out, but I think this is important because, like I said, this is not just a Supergirl movie. This is a Supergirl movie based off of an incredible comic, and a Supergirl movie that was originally titled the same as the Incredible comics. So like they knew what they were doing. They knew what expectations they were setting. And I think that's important. And they have time. They have 7 months. Maybe they just haven't finished all the cool, wacky special effects of the other planets. You know, I don't expect them to do everything from this book either. The way this book ends, specifically what happens in like the last 2 issues, involves an element of the Supergirl mythos that I would be shocked if they referenced here because of how weird it is. I would be impressed if they did. I would love that. But I'd be surprised. And like, I would not judge them at all for making that concession. That there's just certain visuals, certain choices, and I can't guarantee they're one-to-one, but like that big crashing ship at the end of the trailer, that could be a couple of ships. It's a good shot that it's Krem's ship, the space pirate ship, because that's probably the same ship that we see Supergirl swinging that big thing around, getting all those guys. But if that's the case, the style of that ship looks like a pirate ship, right? It has like that. And I think that is a cool thing about the book that could be cool in the movie. I think now we're there as a society. Like, we're okay with that. We maybe 10 years ago wouldn't have been, but like I think we are now. So I hope that they commit. And one thing I did love about the trailer is that it showed the book and it was like, look at this great book. And that is both a great thing because it's going to advertise this book to people and people will read it and probably go, oh, that's awesome. But then it's also going to set some expectations for people that had not read the book until now. When the movie comes out, I hope it will meet. Because like, I like Supergirl. I think Supergirl's cool. I think this book is cool. And this movie could be very cool. Like, this could be the kind of game changer that Guardians was for people, that gets people that are not usually interested in these. I'm very hopeful that that is what this ends up being, because overall, I think the trailer looks fine. There's a lot I like and a lot that I'm a little bit worried about. Kind of like I would be worried about, I don't know, going to a fancy dinner if I had a food allergy, which, I mean, that reminds me of a short film I just watched by a friend of the channel, Patrick Willems, called The Dinner Plan. It is about a man going to a business dinner where he has to eat the food, but he can't eat the food, and that is stressful for him, and it is a very real situation played in a fun, extreme way. And what's awesome is you can watch that short film right now on this video sponsor, Nebula, which we just introduced 3-day trials for Nebula. You're like, what's Nebula? Well, it's a subscription streaming service that I helped to create. I've talked about this many times in many videos before, where me and a bunch of other YouTube creators, people that make videos about like history, culture, current events, science, all kinds of stuff. It's a very big list of what we make videos about. But Nebula is a platform you can go to watch all our videos early, ad-free. You can like download them on your phone. But like, Nebula is curated. I don't know if you guys use YouTube a lot. I do for all kinds of stuff, and it has so much AI. And some of it's like obvious AI, right? Like a movie trailer for Avengers Doomsday, and it's all the characters just kind of turning. But there's also AI content where it is a disembodied voice talking about a news thing or character in a comic book or something. A lot of times I'll be like, what is the deal with this vigilante character? I would like to learn a little bit more about him pretty quickly, so I'll put on a YouTube video. And if I did this 3 years ago, it's like people who know what they're talking about, who are fans of the character, research the character, whatever, and they're like human beings. And I love that. Do it now. Unless you see the person's face or you know who they are, it could very well, and a lot of them are just like AI videos where the AI talks about the characters. It drives me up a wall because you don't always know it until like you're a little bit in and you're like, oh man, something about the way this guy's talking just doesn't feel right. But sometimes they just do sound right, and it's not until like you're pretty much done with the video that you're like, damn it, that wasn't a real person. And like, Nebula's got a lot of great things going for it, but one main one that I love to tell people about is it's all real people. We are making it ourselves, and all the videos getting made on it are made by us, and it's very cool. And a year of Nebula is already a steal. It's $60 a year, $5 a month. But if you go to go.nebula.tv/thenandocut, in the month of December specifically, you can get a year of Nebula for half that, for $30. That is $2.50 a month. It is an incredible deal. Also, like I said, it's December. The holidays are coming up. Gift giving is always stressful. You get somebody like a t-shirt that they're going to wear once or twice and maybe won't fit. Or you could get them a subscription to a streaming service made by creators you know they love that lets them watch those videos early without ads, lets them download them to their phone. And you can get that for $30 a year if you get it within the month of December. That is an incredible deal. That cannot be beat. So again, go to go.tv/thenandocut in the month of December and get a year of Nebula for $30. It's a great deal. Watch the dinner plan, watch all my videos early, watch all the other cool stuff we put up there, and I'll see you guys around. Bye, everybody.